first of our lectures on distributions, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time in this part of the course on distributions because this is going to set up the remainder of the course. So understanding these key concepts is going to be really important moving forward. So in statistics, oftentimes we're interested in the likelihood that some type of event is going to happen. And we talked about this in the probability lecture previous to this. If you haven't watched that yet, please go ahead and do so. And oftentimes in statistics, we're interested if that event is going to occur by random chance or if there's some type of factor that's driving the patterns that we're observing. And this is really the basis of statistical significance, which we're going to delve into as we start talking about these distributions. So there's loads of different questions that we might be interested in that we need to use distributions in order to answer these questions. So maybe we're interested if the size of oysters has changed over two different time periods, and we can compare the sizes of oysters during the study periods. Maybe we're interested in changes in abundance of a particular species to determine if we should change some type of fisheries regulations. Or maybe we're interested if the overall health of the ecosystem has been declining from one year to the next. Now, binomial distributions are a specific type of probability distribution in which there are two mutually exclusive outcomes, and this is very similar to what we discussed in the probability lecture. And when we think about these two mutually exclusive outcomes, one of which is that which we are interested in. And so if we're discussing the oyster question, this might be smaller oysters. And the probability of oysters being smaller can be designated by any particular letter, but we typically use P for this. Now for a binomial distribution, because there's two mutually exclusive outcomes, the probability that P, which is the outcome of interest, did not occur, is going to be 1 minus P, as we learned with the subtractive rule in the probability lecture. And we'll designate this as Q. Now something important is that oysters not being smaller doesn't indicate that oysters are larger. It just simply indicates that the oysters were not smaller from the first time period of interest to the second time period. They may have just remained the same size. So defining the research question is going to be really important moving forward in this course and in your career in science. Now, because we only have two possible outcomes, when we add these two outcomes together, they will equal 1 because our probabilities will sum to 100%. And we can use this to determine the probability of a particular outcome that we're interested in. And the text does a good job of introducing this on section 5.7, and we're going to delve into this using some examples. That way we can see how this binomial distribution works, how we can use it to determine the probability of a particular event occurring, and this is going to set us up for understanding a bit more complex distributions. So let's say that we work for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and we are going to be conducting sampling in Galveston Bay, and we decide to divide the ecosystem into the north section of the bay and the south section of the bay, where we're going to do our sampling every month. And to avoid any type of bias, we're going to randomly select where the sampling is going to take place. And what we're interested in is what the probability is that we're only going to happen to sample in the north, or we're only going to happen to sample in the south, or that we're going to sample in both places. The reason for this is we want to avoid biasing our samples. We don't want to collect all of our data just from one portion of the bay because it's probably not going to represent the entire population of the organisms that we're studying. So we can designate our sampling in North Galveston Bay as P in this particular instance, and then we'll designate Q as the sampling that takes place outside of North Galveston Bay, so not sampling in North Galveston Bay. In this particular case, it'll be in the southern portion of the ecosystem. Now we can use the following formula, P plus Q equals 1, if we only have one sampling event to determine the probabilities of our respective outcomes, sampling in North Galveston Bay or not sampling in North Galveston Bay. And we can adjust this formula slightly in which to account for more than one sampling event, which is likely because TPWD goes out and samples multiple times every month. So we just make this slight adjustment, taking P plus Q to the K, which is the number of sampling events, equals 1. And this will then enable us to determine the probability of different events occurring. So for this particular example, let's define that the probability of sampling in North Galveston Bay and sampling in not North Galveston Bay or South Galveston Bay is equal, such that P equals 0.5 and Q equals 0.5, 50% likelihood that we'll sample in either one of those portions of the ecosystem. So if we use our formula of P plus Q to the K equals 1, and we only sample once, we can go through and we can put in 0.5 for P and 0.5 for Q, and we can then calculate out what our values are for the probability that P is occurring and the probability that Q is occurring. And in this case, there is a 50% likelihood that we sample in North Galveston Bay and a 50% likelihood that we sample in Southern Galveston Bay. Now again, this is pretty unrealistic. TPWD is probably going to go out and sample more than once. Let's say that they only go out and sample twice during the particular month that we're interested in. So we input 2 for K in this particular example, and then we need to multiply out this particular function. And this should be familiar. It's a quadratic function in mathematics for some of your pre-req classes. Now we can go through and we can put in 0.5 for the P and for the Q, and what we find is that the probability of only sampling in North Galveston Bay is going to be 0.25. So it's going to be 25% likelihood that we're only sampling in that portion of the bay. There will be a 25% likelihood that we will not sample in the northern part of Galveston Bay. And there's a 50% likelihood that we're going to sample in both North Galveston Bay and South Galveston Bay. So in total, there will be a 75% likelihood that we'll sample North Galveston Bay at least once during the course of our sampling during the month if we only go out twice. Now we can continue to extrapolate this. Let's say that TPWD goes out 3 times. We can put 3 in for exponent of K. We can multiply out our function, and then we can substitute in 0.5 for both P and for Q, and we can find that our values of only sampling in one region of the bay tend to decrease, whereas sampling in multiple regions of the bay tend to increase. And kind of this general rule of thumb is that as the number of these events increases, the probability of sampling in only one portion of the bay is going to decrease to half the previous number. So if we are interested in getting a representative sample of Galveston Bay, going out multiple times is going to be good because it's going to ensure that we're sampling in multiple portions of the ecosystem. Now, what if TPWD decides that they're going to conduct 20 samples per month, which is what they do for their bag seine and their oyster dredging and bay trawls, and they want to know the probability of each potential outcome occurring, whether that would be sampling in North Galveston Bay 5 times, in South Galveston Bay 15 times, 10 times in each section, maybe only sampling once in a particular section. It's kind of tedious to go and conduct multiply out this particular function if K equals 20. So we have a slightly faster method in which to do this called the binomial formula, in which K is going to represent the total number of samples, and in this case it will be 20. P is going to represent the probability that we're only sampling in North Galveston Bay. Q is representing the probability that we're not sampling in North Galveston Bay, 0.5 in this case for both of those. And then X is going to be the outcome of interest. So because K equals 20, X can be anywhere from 0 to 20. If we're interested in the probability that we're not going to sample in North Galveston Bay, X would equal 0. If we're interested in the probability that we're only going to sample in North Galveston Bay, then X would equal 20. And if we're interested in somewhere in between, then X is going to be somewhere between 1 and 19. This is a little bit abstract at this point, but we'll cover it in lecture to make sure everybody's on the same track. So we can represent this visually, and it makes it a bit easier to understand through this histogram. So on our x-axis, this is our values of x, and this represents the number of times that we're sampling in North Galveston Bay. And then P of x is the probability that that particular event is going to occur. So in this particular case, P of x is based on the height of the bar. And similar to the histograms that we looked at in the visualization lecture, this is equivalent to our relative frequency histograms, and that the summation of all the bars in these histograms will equal 1. So the total summation of all the probabilities in this histogram will equal 1, following our rules for probability. So if we look at the probability of sampling North Galveston Bay 10 times, we can go through and calculate that out using our formula and the histogram area as well. And what we find is that there's approximately an 18% likelihood of sampling North Galveston Bay 10 times, and subsequently South Galveston Bay 10 times as well. Now let's say that we're interested in the likelihood that we only sample North Galveston Bay 7 times. Well, the likelihood is going to decrease. And the reason for this is that as we start deviating from our mean, the probability of our events are going to decrease. Let's say that we have some type of quota that we need to sample each section at least 7 times. Well, we have a variety of possible combinations that can meet this criteria, sampling North Galveston Bay anywhere from 7 to 13 times. Now with this OR in the particular event of interest, it indicates to us that we're going to add the probabilities that we're interested in. So in this particular case, it would be the probability of sampling North Galveston Bay 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13 times. So we're adding all of these together because they all meet our representative criteria. And this represents over 88% of the potential events based on our probabilities of sampling each of those bays equally. Maybe we want to make sure that we have at least 5 sampling events in each portion of the ecosystem each month. And TPWD is interested in what the probability that this is not going to occur just by random chance if we're randomly selecting our sampling location each time. So this would be anywhere from 0 to 4 sampling events in North Galveston Bay, or 16 to 20 sampling events in North Galveston Bay, because if we sampled North Galveston Bay 16 times or more, we'd be sampling South Galveston Bay less than 5 times. So it's the summation of the probability of each one of these potential events occurring. And so we can use the binomial formula in which to calculate each one of these probabilities and taking their sum, or we can determine what the area is for each one of these representative bars. What we find is that there's a very low likelihood of us not sampling each part of the bay at least 5 times, less than 2% chance, if we're randomly selecting our sampling site and the probability of those selections is 0.5. And as we move forward in discussing distributions, this is going to be the basis of determining if we have some type of a significant event. Significance is something that is commonly used in statistics to denote an effect that is of interest, and we'll be discussing this, and the basis of this is the probability that some type of event is less than 5% likely to occur just by random chance based on the probabilities of those different events occurring. Now, what if we decide to make an adjustment to our probabilities? TPWD Galveston Bay is based in Dickinson, so maybe it requires more fuel for them to sample North Galveston Bay versus South Galveston Bay, so we make some adjustments to the probabilities to make sure our budget works. So we can make adjustments to our probabilities of sampling in North Galveston Bay to 0.25, and now the probability of not sampling in North Galveston Bay increases to 0.75. Again, the total probabilities for all possible events needs to equal 1. Well, we can use the same formula. We can use the same values for k, we can use the same values for x. We just need to make some substitutions for p and for q to account for that change in probability for each one of those potential events occurring. And what we notice here is that as we make changes to our probabilities, the shape and also the location of our histogram of our binomial distribution is going to change, shifted over to the left. And what we see is that if we ask the same questions, like what the probability is that we're only going to sample one particular area of the bay less than 5 times, well, that probability changes. In this particular case, the probability actually increases. And so as we're making changes to the probabilities of certain events occurring, we see shifts in the shape as well as in the peakness of our representative binomial distribution. And we're going to talk about this more in class, but I'd recommend strongly to check out section 5.7.1. And as we move into the next video, we're going to talk more broadly about probability distributions, and it'll help put some of this information into a bit broader context.